This you would think that my engine oil is leaking, but it's not. Smell it.
Yeah, that's diesel.
It's all diesel fuel in here. So from here back is fuel. It's even on your particulate filters or cats. Nice and gunky, ready to catch fire. More fuel.
But the fuel's even worked its way.
So yeah, that's fuel.
Okay.
Even the trailer hitch has it on it. Wow.
So I'm driving a giant Molotov cocktail, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Oh my goodness. Ah!
There's like a gallon of diesel in there.
Welcome to Hoovie's Garage, the dumbest automotive channel in all of YouTube, and you are looking at a Mercedes, more specifically a 2008 Mercedes GL320 CDI. And back when these were new, I dreamed of owning one. At the time, I had just gotten into Mercedes diesels. I had bought a 1985 Mercedes 300D with the venerable 617 inline 5 turbo diesel engine, and it was as solid as a rock. Very reliable, and when it did break, I could fix pretty much any of it myself, despite having no mechanical experience at all. So when these came out around the same time that I was starting my journey into Hoopty Land, I thought it would be the ultimate Mercedes diesel. Yes, it cost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, but then you would get a giant SUV with an invincible Mercedes diesel engine that would last a lifetime, and well, that was the farthest thing from the truth. Now, this is saying a lot, but I think this is the worst Mercedes made in the last decade or so, and Mercedes has made a lot of bad cars. The CLA is the first one to come to mind, but the CLA was built to a price point. It's not good because it was cheap, and this thing wasn't cheap. It was built for a purpose, and that purpose it completely fails at. Allow me to explain. So if you were a Mercedes diesel buyer in the mid-2000s, you had an old 300 SD or something like that you wanted to trade in, this seemed like a very attractive prospect. Now, these were built in Alabama, the same place where the Mercedes ML was built, and it's many years after they had figured out all the issues with the ML. Initially, they called the Mercedes ML the Alabama trash can because the build quality wasn't even close to the same as what you got from Mercedes in Germany. But the cars got better, they figured things out, and this was the next generation of SUVs to come out of Alabama, along with the Mercedes ML, the next generation, and it just introduced a whole new world of problems. Now, my own personal recollection from these things back when they were new, when I would stop by the Mercedes dealership, is I would look in the service row. I loved driving in the back to see what was broken back there, and there was always a row of these things with their suspension, well, tipped one way or the other. And the reason for that is they were failing in record rates. The air suspension would blow on these things left and right like crazy, and apparently it was a back order on parts. These things would sit for weeks waiting for repairs. Now, that eventually died down, but still the suspension failures were rampant, but that wasn't the only problem with these things. Before I dive into all the problems with this, the GL in particular, and why it's one of the worst Mercedes built, the worst Mercedes built in the last 10 years, well, let's cover the good things. This is the GL320 CDI 4MATIC, which is already a mouthful on the back of that rear tailgate, but it was before they added BlueTech to that badge, which meant an extra tank that you would have to fill that would spray stuff on the exhaust to make the diesels cleaner. In later cars like the GLK 250 BlueTech, they would take away the spare tire to put in this BlueTech tank so you could have a cleaner diesel. This meant run flat tires. Totally stupid. I never wanted one of these. I thought this was the year to get, and boy, oh boy, was I wrong. Yes, BlueTech adds an extra level of complication. It disables the car if there's a malfunction with the BlueTech tank, if the level sensor is wrong, which is really annoying. This one doesn't have it, but it has plenty of other problems. But good things about this thing. You have a 3-row full-size SUV. With the Torque V6, a tow package, and the air suspension, you can actually tow quite a bit with these things. And the interiors are decently nice, especially if you get it like this with the P2 package with the leather dash. They call these things the S-classes of SUVs, but the quality, it just wasn't there for an S-Class. It does drive okay. The acceleration isn't very good, something like an 8-second 0 to 60, but you expect that with a diesel. I also think it's styled really well. It's a handsome vehicle, especially on the front, and gas mileage-wise, it's over 20 miles per gallon on the highway, so really good fuel economy, but that's about it on the nice things that I have to say about this SUV. Now, if you were a buyer of a GL320, or if you're buying a used one, they seem ridiculously cheap. Ridiculously cheap, and there's a good reason for that. I wouldn't have bought this except I was kind of looking for a beater just to get me by for a few months while the G55 was getting fixed in the middle of winter. I didn't want to drive something, nice and ruin it. I need to drive a kid to school and all that stuff. So this definitely fit the bill, and I bought it mostly because of the story, and I wanted to get this out of my system. I wanted to verify in my head how big of a letdown the GL diesel is, and, well, it just confirmed my theory. Now, I get emails regularly from viewers who think I am dumb enough to buy their absolutely terrible cars that are bleeding them dry, and 90% of the time, well, 99% of the time I'm able to resist, but this one I didn't because, well, it was the son of the owner emailing me to see if I was interested in this GL320 CDI. He called it the S-Class of Mercedes SUVs and, well, talked about how big of a pain that it was. I was actually kind of interested because it was so cheap that it was hard to refuse. But then he put me in touch with his father and he sort of told me the entire story. Now, they bought this around 7-8 years ago for $30,000. It had just shy of 100,000 miles on it, and it was pretty good for the first year. I have all the service records right here. I've perused them multiple times. It is a brutal, brutal story. About a year in and 100,000 miles, they had a pretty big repair bill, $3,500, but it's mostly maintenance, a full engine tune-up, which there's no spark plugs, but it's glow plugs, trans service, some oil leaks, and you can see just a lot of maintenance that totaled up to $3,500. Not the end of the world, normal for a car with 100,000 miles for you to spend money going through fluids, maintenance, that kind of stuff, but things really started falling apart from there. The air suspension, I have receipts from 6 failures. 6 failures of the air suspension. You only have 4 struts, but somehow there managed to be 6 failures. Apparently it was the rampant suspension failures where the car would sag to one side that the owner's wife finally got tired of it. Just said, I can't drive this thing anymore. I don't trust it. We need to get rid of it. So they tried to trade it in for a BMW X5, which amazing they're going to the arms of BMW for reliability to get out of this thing, but still probably a better car than this. And the trade offer was so low that they decided to keep it as an extra car, and that was a massive, massive mistake. Now, it wasn't just air suspension failures. This thing had oil leaks upon oil leaks fixed over and over again. Things like the timing chain failed. On a Mercedes diesel engine, the timing chain failed. The transfer case failed. The rear hatch failed, among so many other things. There's well over $15,000 in repair records on this thing, and they didn't want to take the $5,000 dealership offer because they invested so much that they kept it. And, well, it kept breaking and kept breaking. They spent thousands more, and, well, even then they couldn't keep on top of the repairs. So they offered to sell it to me for not much more than that trade-in offer that they got a few years ago, and, well, here it is. It is currently leaking diesel. It is currently leaking oil, and lots of it. That's this giant pool of disgustingness here. It's also leaking power steering fluid and who knows what else. So despite mechanically totaling itself multiple times, it is mechanically totaled again right now at 200,000 miles on it. But when you look at this thing and you look at how, well, nice-ish the interior is, it's actually really nice and holding up very well, you could get suckered into buying one of these. Especially if you have experience with older Mercedes and remember them being simple, robust cars, great used values, but this is not. And that's why I think it is the absolute worst Mercedes built in the last 10 years, because the expectations of a Mercedes diesel with higher mileage does not even come close to meeting reality, and this car has 0 other redeeming qualities that would make it worth the pain. It's not sporty or that fun to drive like an X5 or a sporty SUV or an AMG where you would put up with the pain. It's not a desirable vehicle, and while it does have that Mercedes badge and certainly looks expensive and you bought it cheap, you could do that with many cars and have a much better ownership experience. And the whole diesel thing, well, it's just not worth the trouble when you don't have the reliability that comes with it, hence all of these repairs. I am not a diesel fan anymore. I don't see them as the future just because of all the emissions restrictions, how complicated they're getting, and gasoline engines are kind of following suit. So I'm going to punt this thing at auction very, very soon. But before I do that, I'm kind of curious about this oil leak, because these are known for having a $5,000 oil leak from an oil cooler on the back of the engine. And the amount that's coming out makes me wonder if that's what it is, and to see what else is wrong with it. I'm curious how mechanically totaled this Mercedes diesel is, despite it running and driving still pretty well. And hopefully this video will save a few people from making a huge mistake and buying one of these, a GL320 or any first generation GL used and cheap, because there's no winning with these things.
It cranks right over. That's nice, because a week ago this thing wouldn't even start in the cold. It was 0 degrees, -5 degrees here, and I left it outside. I had anti-gel in the tank so the fuel didn't gel. It was just too cold, and this thing with 200,000 miles, it was tired apparently and just noped at the weather. Thankfully I had the G55 back by then. Otherwise my wife and I would have had to share a car for a while, which isn't the end of the world, but still, you'd think this thing could start in the cold. It's a modern Mercedes diesel with working glow plugs, no codes for that, but not this one. Now, I will admit the air ride suspension on this thing is very nice. Is it worth the trouble? Absolutely not, but it makes this big SUV ride really, really nice. And the turbo diesel motor does have a lot of torque. The turbo is original on this GL, which is pretty remarkable because those fail left and right as well. But right off the line, you have a pretty good burst of torque, and it kind of peters out the more you accelerate, but it's nice to have that torque right off the line. And the seats are very comfortable. This is a nicely appointed vehicle, and materials wise it seems to be of good quality, and all of it is aging very well, so it looks really, really good. But under the hood, this thing is super, super sick, despite the fact that it's driving really well. I can't believe how much fluid is leaking out of this diesel, and it's still working as we head to the Car Wizards. Oh my. Oh, Wizard. Wizard.
Like this thing?
Is beautiful.
Got lots of miles on it.
How many miles?
The owner said 340,000.
340,000.
Yep.
Well, it looks it, but
it still runs and drives.
yeah. The thing about old Mercedes, though, I see more of these on the road, classic ones, just being daily driven than any other make and model of car.
Really, yeah.
Mostly because it's so practical, but also because they hold up so well.
They were built like tanks. They literally were built like tanks back then.
Yeah. Well, what I brought you is another Mercedes.
It's probably
Not built like a tank.
not built like a tank.
I think it was the worst Mercedes built in the last decade or so, just because of how expensive it was and how horribly unreliable it is compared to its, well, diesel and classic predecessors.
Oh, it's a diesel.
Yes, a GL diesel,
Oh,
Mercedes
yes.
GL.
Those are horrible.
Horrible. Yeah, and it has a big oil leak, so I was wondering if you could look,
Yes.
but I'm probably not going to fix it, so no money for you. Just look.
Oh, well, I could charge you for the look.
Well, Wizard, I said it's leaking oil. It's actually leaking oil, diesel, power steering fluid.
I thought it smelled like a diesel oil leak in Alaska or something.
Yeah,
It smells really
yeah.
bad.
It's the Exxon Valdez. Yes, it's exactly what it is. I've had it 3 or 4 months. I've had to top off the power steering twice, the oil 4 or 5 times. It's leaking a lot. It's here.
It's here. They change it from year to year.
Yes. Might as well take that off. There. What a mess of an engine with all these fuel lines and electrical lines. Ugh.
Definitely. I've worked on a few of these, and they are not fun.
Yeah, I remember you had one in here with a bad turbo, right?
Yeah, the turbo was bad. I had to take all this apart to get to it, and I can definitely smell the diesel, though. 'Cause there's a fuel filter.
In the middle there?
Yeah.
Well, the turbo, as far as the service records show, hasn't been changed, but the timing chain has failed in this car.
Look at all that wetness down there.
Yeah, lots of oil. The transfer case has failed on this car. The
It has.
air suspension has failed on this car 6 times.
6 times. Oh my God! I just about sliced my hand
At
open.
least. And numerous leaks, electrical problems. A razor blade.
I think whoever worked on this last was probably cutting a few lines while they were doing it.
I figured I would drive it for a while before I brought it to you to see if there's any redeeming qualities to this vehicle that would make me want to spend a bunch of money fixing it. And honestly, I haven't found any. This thing really is a trap for people, I feel like, because it's so much cheaper than, say, a used Toyota Highlander or a Honda Pilot.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a nicer car, but it's not.
It's not.
It's
no.
not. No.
These are pretty bad without the diesel engine.
Yeah, you had the V8 in here a while ago, and it was a massive job for just a valve cover gasket,
Yeah,
right?
it was huge. It's leaking everywhere.
Yes.
It's all wet over here. Along the radiator, it's all black oil.
Is there an oil cooler up there? Or is it just... Ugh.
It's just nasty. We can probably lift it in the air and get a better idea where it's coming from. Is from the V of the motor or down the sides, or look from underneath.
All right, well, it's lots of fluids mixed together.
It is.
Up she goes. And look, it's already left a puddle for you, Richard.
Great.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Ooey gooey. Ooey gooey.
It's just oil everywhere. My goodness. It's been spraying from somewhere and just off the belt.
Well, then that's probably not the really expensive one they're talking about. The oil cooler. That's a $4,000 one. Or maybe it is.
It could be. There's the AC compressor, there's power steering pump. Let me go over to this side.
I don't have to worry about doing oil changes though, because it's renewing the oil itself.
Yeah. It's renewing the asphalt every time you drive by.
Oh my goodness.
It's just everywhere.
It's everywhere.
This here is fuel. This you would think that my engine oil is leaking, but it's not. Smell it.
Yeah, that's diesel.
It's all diesel fuel in here.
Okay.
You may actually have a diesel fuel leak that's really bad, and it contaminates. Actually, the fuel picks up all the dirt and crud along the way and turns black like engine oil.
Well, that would make a lot more sense, but I do have to top off oil a lot.
Okay,
it may just be eating it because it's an old diesel.
A lot of this here is fuel. This is not oil. It's just watery. So from here back is fuel. It's even on your particulate filters or cats. Nice and gunky, ready to catch fire. Please do. More fuel. Man, this thing, your fuel economy must be horrible on this because it's all going on the ground.
You know, it still actually gets over 20 miles per gallon on the highway.
Wow.
But the fuel's even worked its way.
So, yeah, that's fuel.
I've been driving it like this with my children inside of it for 3-4 months.
Oh, man. That's bad.
Okay.
Even the trailer hitch has it on it.
Okie dokie.
Wow.
So I'm driving a giant Molotov cocktail, basically.
Yeah, basically. But we need to find out where that's coming from.
I was going to dump this thing at auction, but I don't even think I would want to do it like this because this could kill somebody.
It could. If it were to catch fire at anywhere along here,
It's all over.
it's everywhere.
The Wizard is lowering it down so we can run it to see this fuel leak because it's pouring out. It's definitely still leaking some oil. It's oily under there.
But it's not, I don't think it's the huge $4,000 leak.
Oh my goodness. Ah!
There's like a gallon of diesel in there.
Oh yeah, that's what's all over my garage floor, for sure.
Yep.
Yep.
Ugh.
Well, the GL Diesel has stumped the Wizard.
I'm not going to be able to find whatever it is here in just a 15 or 20 minutes. If you haven't driven it for 3 months with oil soaking all over the place, it'd be a lot faster, but everywhere I look, there's puddles and puddles and puddles of fuel.
Just goo everywhere.
Yep. It's going to have to be lightly pressure washed and then start all over and see where it's coming from.
Okay. Well, I guess I shouldn't drive it like this, should I?
No. If the engine gets hot enough to get the diesel fuel vapors starting to come off the fuel, it could ignite, so.
This car's, yeah, basically a fuel-soaked rag right now is this car.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll leave it with you. Well, I said I was going to dump this thing and not spend a dime, but I can't sell it like this.
No.
Not in good conscience. So
Someone could get hurt.
okay, well, have fun. I'll drive home one of the old Mercedes. I have actually 2 reliable old Mercedes here, but the one I sold, everybody's been emailing me about that one. It's sold to Chinchilla.
Chinchilla bought that
Yes.
one. Yeah.
But the S500 Coupe is here, so I will take that home and
Yep.
not die. Thank you for watching.